Um, I'd like to start the meeting by welcoming everyone. And this is a very special meeting for us for two reasons. One, this is the first time that our conversations is being opened up to a wider public, consisting of Athastrians in other parts of India and also to our friends and well-wishers in other parts. We have one problem, which is power supply, and I hope we will all pray that there will be no interruption during this meeting. It's been a little unpredictable. I would also like to tell all the members that you can raise your hand. You can also use the chat facility to write out questions and send them to us, and we shall take them up. And Dr. Mashelkar, I'm sure, would be happy to look at them and take the ones which can be accommodated within the time. As I said, we a special occasion, of course, being made very special by the towering presence of Dr. Mashelkar. We have today here, we had registrations from 27 Athashrians for the first time in Athashris in Pune. 4 Athashris in Pune have sent us 27 persons. We have 24 Rotarians from the Rotary Club of Bombay West. We have 6 Rotarians from the Rotary Club of Bombay Whitefield and some other Rotary clubs also. In fact, if it were a regular meeting with this composition, people might even mistake it for a Rotary meeting. But this is not a Rotary meeting. Although in many ways it is similar to a Rotary meeting because we here comprise a mix of achievers in different professions right across. We have got here persons from the civil service, from Army, Navy, Air Force, the police, teaching, doctors, the corporate world. And the only difference between us and the Rotarians is that our average age is 75 plus. We have several invitees here spread out from Cochin to Mumbai, Pune, Vapi, Wayanad in Kerala, Ahmedabad, and even New Jersey. They are all our members. And therefore, I won't take up much of your time. It's a very, very happy moment for me personally and for us at Athashri to be able to welcome you, Dr. Mashelkar, in our midst, and to welcome all our other well-wishers from outside Athashri. We got this meeting fixed through Dr. Lavkare, our Athashrian Lavkare, who is a close friend of Dr. Mashelkar. And I think it's in the fitness of things that he introduces the speaker. Over to you, Prabhakar.
Thank you, Raja. Hello, Ramesh. How are you?
Hi, how are you, Prabhakar?
Yeah, never seen you online like this.
Yes.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the former resume of our speaker today has already been circulated, and therefore I don't want to go into the detail. I assume it is read. What I'm going to talk about or introduce Ramesh is more on a personal note. And yeah, Ramesh, I hope you wouldn't mind that.
Sure.
Okay. See, I know Ramesh for nearly last 4 decades, ever since we worked with the Science Advisory Council in the Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi in the early 80s. While I am aged, but this young man has got younger and every year. He is my only friend who was born on January 1st. And that may be the secret of his youth. Every year, as we celebrate the Happy New Year, we see a happy new Ramesh with fresh, positive, and innovative approaches and ideas. That's the secret of the happy new Mashelkar we see every year. It is this positive approach that has given him the confidence when he self-proclaimed himself as a dangerous optimist. Now, I cannot imagine him to be dangerous, but he's certainly a great optimist. Ramesh lost his father at an early age of 6. And he has been brought up by his mother, Srimati Anjani Mashelkar, who brought him up facing all odds that a poor, widowed, uneducated mother moving to Mumbai with her only child, a boy of 6-year-old Ramesh. And this she did with courage and dignity. Her own circumstances never brought her down. She always expressed concern about the underprivileged people around her and wanted her son to do something about it. After her demise, Ramesh did precisely what his mother wanted him to do. And that is, he set up a foundation in her name and initiated the Anjani Mashelkar Inclusive Innovative Award, which was instituted by him in 2011. The aim is to recognize and reward innovators who develop solutions for the excluded members of the society. During the last 8 or 9 years, several awardees have been recipients of this award. Ramesh always speaks very highly and lovingly of his mother, and is proud to be a son of such a visionary lady. I know Ramesh also is a family man and is very fond of his wife Vaishali, who is also a creative painter. And recently, an exhibition of her paintings was personally arranged by Ramesh in Pune, where he invited many of his friends and colleagues to share his joy. Happy to hear about Vaishali's painting exhibition. Ramesh, good job. I wish I could be there. I wasn't there in Pune, so I couldn't come. Many traditionally Indian-oriented Indians often feel that Indian scientists do not respect India's past tradition as they get involved in global science or what is called as a Western science. And Ramesh is an exception. He very strongly believes in the Indian traditional Guru-Shishya relationship and greatly admires his mentors. In fact, in praising his PhD guide, Professor M.M. Sharma, another great scientist of India, he thought of him as the divine scientist. His belief in the virtues of Indian traditional medicine is very strong. Dr. Mashelkar is probably best known to the common man through his crusade against the US patents on turmeric, which was filed by 2 scientists in US, bringing out the fact that the healing properties of turmeric are something which they have discovered. Arguing that the healing properties of turmeric are well known as traditional knowledge in India, Dr. Mashelkar fought a 14-month-long legal battle to revoke the patent filed in the US by the 2 scientists and emerged as a victorious. This victory was so significant that it changed the way patents were classified and earned him the nickname of the warrior of Haldi Ghati. Mashelkar had later said, and I think I quote, India fought the turmeric patent not for financial reasons, but to uphold national pride and to dispel unfounded fears that India was incapable of protecting its traditional knowledge base, unquote. Finally, as a dangerous optimist that he is, in his writings in the technology future, he has predicted that by 2050, India would be a leading advanced nation, which is his dream. And as a typical true Indian devotee, he asks the God, if God permits one wish, I will ask for one day on earth again to see my dream come true of 2050. Ramesh, I personally wish that this dream of yours comes true much earlier, and you are there with us to watch this. Rameshkar will witness it. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my young friend, Dr. Ramesh Mashelkar, who will talk to us, as expected, on an innovative subject of reimagining and reinventing post-COVID. I hope the COVID gloom will go away after his talk. Thank you, Ramesh, for accepting our invitation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prabhakar. Your usual sweet, charming, affectionate, wonderful, wonderful human being, our wonderful friendship over 4 decades. I really, really cherish Prabhakar. And you call me young Mashelkar. I feel even younger after your wonderful words. It's a special privilege and an honor. I want to thank you all for giving me this opportunity. I know that among my listeners today lies some of the greatest wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. So, what I'm going to say with all humility is just my own understanding of this complex subject. I'm not an expert, I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm an ordinary chemical engineer who happened to do engineering science. But I have looked at what has happened over a period of time, and I'll give you my perspective about where we are, where we ought to go. Uh, the fact that this is unprecedented and profound, there is no doubt. In fact, somebody has said the meaning of AC and BC has to be different now, before Christ and after Christ. Similarly, it is before COVID and after COVID. After COVID, the word is going to be very, very different. And we have seen socio-economic devastation, and we have to start the process of restarting, rebuilding. But I'm going beyond, and I'm saying reimagining and reinventing. And we have done the restarting and rebuilding cautiously. In a sense, terms like cautious economy, careful economy is coming up. People are saying, you know, uh, uh, return of capital, not return on capital. Return of capital being play safe, make sure that the capital comes back, and then we will sort of make profit. So it's a question of first survival and then success. And from there, we have to move on. We talked about social distancing. I don't like the word social distancing. It is physical distancing, but with a social bonding, with social connect. And I do know that people are talking about economic recession. We can come out of it, but one thing we do not want is a social recession. We must keep that social bonding. What I'm going to do is how it is going to touch everything: education, economy, environment, health, our very future society, the entire geopolitics. I'll give you some of my ideas. But I must say that as a scientist, I would like to state that pandemic is indeed humbling, but an acute reminder that science is our only defense from the predations of the nature. Science, science first, science for solution, science for survival that we are going to have, whether it is through drugs, vaccines, whatever, and then science for success. First thing I want to say is that the changes that we are seeing are very rapid and very massive. You know, history repeats itself. 14th century, the bubonic plague spread its black death from Wuhan, China, to Italy in 16 years. You know how much time it took this time? 16 weeks, actually. That is how this rapid spread was. And as you can see, how globally connected we are. Look at just what has happened in 3 months. In a short time, 1.6 billion students are out of school from 192 countries. If somebody had told me this 3 months ago, I would not have believed it. Look at telemedicine. One British general practitioner said, we have done in 10 days what we would have taken 10 years to do. In US, if you see telemedicine, telehealth, from 11% it has jumped to 49%, and $250 billion of current US healthcare is virtualized in such a short time, a major difference. And that has happened in India also. I mean, there is this Pacto startup, which is a medical consultancy startup, and its value has doubled every week after week after week in March, April, and May, and August well for us because you know our doctor population, I mean doctor availability per thousand is so low. What was worrying is that the disparities of different types have sprung up in just 3 months. And there are disparities of different kind. We always talked about disparity between the poor and the rich, but there are new disparities. For example, between formal and informal employment and continuity of wages because migrants are informal. That is one. Second, the white collar and the blue collar worker, knowledge base, they have a chance to do work from home, but the factory workers, they don't have. So there is this disparity. Then the young and the old, because old and all of us belong to that category, we are at a far greater risk. The urban and rural, it all started in the urban but has moved to rural where the health infrastructure is very poor. And there are disparities between businesses, those who have runways, with cash in hand, with those who have little or who are indebted. And then most importantly, between the digitally connected and unconnected. You can do work from home or online education or tele services if you are digitally sort of connected. So the disparities have increased. And if you can see the number of people who are poor have become extremely poor. They run into hundreds of millions. And you're seeing those migrant workers, those scenes. I can't sleep at night when I see some of those scenes, the children, the old grandparents sort of walking, and the girl taking her father on hundreds of miles cycling. I mean, these are incredible things that happen. The one point, however, I want to make is that this all might sound new, but it is not. Some of it not. For example, work from home. If you remember, and I'm very proud of that, the Indian IT industry created global revolution by pioneering the concept of remote work 3 decades ago. And what COVID has done, that work from home, its speed, its scale, and its scope. Speed has increased enormously, the scale enormously, and the scope has changed. Look at education to home. I have this book of mine, Reinventing India. And I remember giving the Science Congress lecture in year 2000. I'm sure Prabhakar was there. And, we have 5,000 scientists and Prime Minister come, some Nobel laureates, and so on and so forth. And I remember giving Panchasheel for the movie. This was in 2000, almost 20 years ago. And I had given at that time a new Panchasheel for the new millennium. Child-centered education, women-centered family, human-centered development, knowledge-centered society, and innovation-centered India. And in the child-centered education, I have said, the IT revolution is on all aspects of life, including education. New paradigm shifts will take place in both teaching and learning. Teaching and learning. There are all kind of a classroom when the teacher taught and we as students. The internet has already made it possible to take education to the homes of the learners with self-learning programs with the great use of multimedia. Education can be potentially brought to them in the homes of those who have not been unreachable so far. And I remember having quoted Swami Vivekananda, and he had said that if schools can't be taken to school, the school should be taken to school. And our Dr. Vijay Bhatkar started ETH, Education to Home, 20 years ago. Now suddenly, the advance of technology, but needs of the hour, because children simply cannot go to school. And thirdly, deglobalization. Deglobalization has already started. That nationalistic feeling, the President Trump of this word and others, etc., they were doing that. But this is getting now accelerated. I want to talk about sort of few sort of things that have happened and the new challenges that have come. And one of the inspiring statements that our current Prime Minister has made is about Atmanirbhar Bharat. Okay, as a fallout of what has happened. Now, I want to emphasize that Atmanirbhar Bharat cannot be the good old, the import substitution Bharat protected by big tariff wars. It has to be self-reliant. but we have to have a new meaning, not isolation, but integration with global economy, with post-COVID global supply chains. See, Make in India 1.0 assembled in India. I think we have to move to 2.0 where we talk about invented in India and not just assembled in India. It is very interesting. Yesterday, I was talking to a confederation of young leaders. So this is a very different experience for me talking to the seniors within 12 hours. And I explained to them, because they were actually, they had invited me to talk about what they can do for creating Atmanirbhar Bharat. And I told them about this and I explained to them in a very simple way. I said the iPhones were made in China and Foxconn did that, and 4.5 million jobs were created. And for every iPhone, China got $10, but Apple got $250. So I said India has three choices. One is to sweat it out, just get $10 but 4.5 million jobs. Second is to think, create, and get $250 per iPhone as against $10. Or do both. We want jobs, so do that as well as $10 as well as $250. So invent in India and make in India. And I want to emphasize this particular point because we should not lose track. I have seen the production of mobile phones. I'm taking that example. We had Indian brands like Micromax, Carbon, Lava, etc. They had 45% market share just 4 years ago. You know what is their market share today? Not 45%, just 7.5%. And who has eaten the bread? Who has eaten the cake? China. They're right here. They captured the sort of Indian market, and they have now 68% share. They have moved from 9% to 68% share because they went by the scale of manufacture. They had continuous research, innovation, customization, etc., etc. As we just as assemblers, of SKDs, and this is not. We must invent and we must make. I think that is the important point. Now, there is a lot of talk about, China, and the sentiment is shifting now. Not made in China, but the previous China, but now they say not in China. I personally believe that we should read the situation correctly. It cannot be no China. It will be less China, or it will be China plus one. But where is the opportunity for India that I'm seeing now? For example, 2019 September, the Naval report said that among the 56 companies which wanted to move, you know how many of them wanted to come to India? 3. That's all. But 2020, the situation is going to change. Because what has happened is that post-COVID, as I said, less China, China plus one, and there are new alliances that will come up where those who can be politically trusted, things are going to shift to them. And India is one that belongs to that category. And therefore, when Britain has proposed that D10 alliance on 5G and emerging technologies, India is very much a part of it. So what happened in 2019, again, that Nomura report had to be done, let us say post-COVID. I'm quite sure it will not be 3, but several folds more that will be wanting to move to India. But for that, I'm afraid India has to set its house right. Our Prime Minister had talked about 4 L's, land, labor, law, and I would add the cost of capital and other sort of hassles. I think it is very important that we fix this so that we don't miss this opportunity. The other point I want to make is that it is not a make or buy option. As early as in 1998, I had given the C.D. Deshmukh Memorial Lecture. It was called Economics of Knowledge because a century of knowledge was just sort of coming up. And I had talked about 5 options. First was, of course, make. Like make in India, make in America, etc. That's one. The second was buy. But buy you can when you have foreign exchange and people are wanting to give you the sort of the technology. For many times, for love or for money, you just don't get the technology. The third one is buy to make better, like what Japan did. Transistor was not invented there, but they bought the patents and they became number one. Make to buy better. The third, buy to make better. The third one is make to buy better. And Prabhakar and I have seen that happen. As a matter of fact, Prabhakar will remember the meeting where Rajiv Gandhi asked us, what are we good at? We said this, and what do we do with it? The idea of supercomputer came. Then came Param, Vijay Bhatkar, and so on and so forth, because we had a denial. But after we started graduating in that, gradually the restrictions start getting removed. And the same Cray computer, with a computing company which did not want to give, they said, we'll come. And I had personal experience of this. For example, I was on the IPCL board and we wanted alpha olefin technology. To do what? Alpha olefin sulfonate, which are detergents. Now, there is nothing special about clothes washing. We went to Idemitsu, we went to Chevron, we went to Shell. Nobody would give it. So we started our own sort of research. We came up to pilot plant, and some finance guys sort of torpedoed it. But I was traveling with the Chevron guy and said, we were watching you. And had you gone up to pilot plant, we would have given you the technology because we knew that you will surpass us, basically, So I think making to buy better. And the last option is making it together. And I'll give these examples of public-private sector coming together. So when we talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat, it is not about just making it. Make, buy to make better, make to buy better, make it together. How do we create this stuff? As far as our future is concerned, post-COVID, I would like to say the 3 Ds are going to shape up the future. Digitalization, decentralization, and decarbonization. And let me explain. As far as, for example, manufacturing is concerned, digital transformation of manufacturing operations is not an option, it is a must. We must create more flexible, more agile, more responsive manufacturing. We have to be able to respond to volatility and uncertainty better, remotely assisted assembly operations through AR and VR, augmented reality, virtual reality, IoT solutions, etc. will come, and also even energy management, monitoring, and even monitoring man and machine. This is going to be very, very important. So it is not going to be at the periphery, but it is going to be at the core. And the way industry is going to work is going to change. TCS on the other day said that 75% of their workers will work from home by 2025. I chair the KPIT Technology Innovation Council, and my friend Ravi Pandit was saying that as soon as the COVID situation is over, 50% of these people will work from home. So I think that entire thing is going to change. The second part is decentralization after digitalization. And that is going to have sort of a new meaning because the supply chains are getting distributed. Previously, they were so reliable that no matter where in the world those are getting manufactured, you will keep minimum inventory, just in time, as they say. Now it's going to be just in case because you don't know. So what is going to happen is that resilience is going to be the key. Resilience. And therefore, resilience is going to take precedence over efficiency. I think that decentralization, we have to look at India post-COVID in a different way. The migrant labor has moved to their villages and they're so scared, it will be quite some time before they can be actually brought back. I think we need to really innovate and see how, for example, we have been talking about small and medium enterprise. We must talk about micro enterprise and particularly rural micro enterprise, giving them capital, giving them technology. My own CSR, Council of Scientific Industrial Research, is working, for example, with Odisha government to see how that can be done. And that has to be done across the country because India, at the end, is a pyramid, the top of the pyramid, the middle of the pyramid, the bottom of the pyramid, and we have to take care of sort of all of it. So we talked about digitalization, we talk about decentralization. The next is very important, decarbonization. And of course, more digitalization will mean more decarbonization, more decentralization, and that can come through different means. For example, we talk about 3D printing. Now, 3D printing can be done in your own garage. You don't require supply chains, and therefore decarbonization becomes sort of obvious. But I think the most important part is the climate change threat that we have. And the current pandemic, in my view, provides us with how a full-fledged climate crisis will entail the crisis. Like the pandemic created crisis both on supply side as well as on demand side. Climate change will also have these exogenous shocks on both supply side as well as demand side. Supply side disruption as well as demand side disruption. And then the global transmission, like the way it happened in the COVID case, and how fast it can take place, how fast the amplification can take place, it will have a huge impact. And therefore, this temptation that this economic recovery, somehow or the other we have to do it. Polluters can just get away, let us get back, let us first get back to the economy and then we'll become non-polluting. I think that would be absolutely wrong. We have to get sustainability. Sustainability is the greatest key and the key. So I talked about 3Ds. Let me move to the 3Ts that are going to be very important post-COVID. And they are talent, technology, and trust. And let me explain. I remember Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji used to say that India's future is in IT, information technology. I also used to say India's future is in IT, but IT as in Indian talent. In fact, that is our greatest strength, if you ask me. Now, how it is going to be important? Let us look at this even from manufacturing perspective. When we say make in India and this, that, and the other. Look at Apple, for example. If you see, they have sort of 300 out of their 800 manufacturing plants in China. So we'll obviously feel, oh, they are there because of the low-cost labor. No. I came across Tim Cook's interview, and I want to quote from what he's saying. He says, we are not there in China because of low-cost labor. It is not any more cost arbitrage because it's not a low-cost labor economy anymore. We are not there for cost arbitrage, we are there for value arbitrage. They talk about, for example, 2 million app developers in China, first rate, who actually write apps for iOS App Store. Tim Cook talks in his interview about the skill, the high precision skills that they have, the craftsmanship, the sophisticated robotics that they have, and the computer science at the highest level. As you know, the most powerful supercomputer is China. It's not India anymore, and all those other skills, basically. So the point I'm trying to make is that if in India 2.0 or whatever you sort of say in terms of Atmanirbhar Bharat, Indian talent of the highest level has to be built up. Now, I have a paper, I won't have time to go into the detail, but there is a paper I have done. It is called Exponential Technology, Industry 4.0 and Jobs in India. And it is available on my website, www.mashelkar.com. So please have a look at it, and the upskilling that you need in terms of the new exponential technologies that are coming up, whether it is big data analytics or Internet of Things or virtual reality, augmented reality, blockchain, whole range of things, how we have to move. There are 55 new class of jobs that are coming up. I think we'll have to get into that. Otherwise, we can't do that. Now, then you will say, well, if you're saying this is all needed, so do we have really the sort of right level of talent? I would say yes. There are islands of excellence of an incredible kind. I'll just give you some example, because to me, there is a talent, there is a technology. Our challenge is that we don't have trust. And that has been our major challenge. And I'll explain that to you. For example, there is something that was created that was ahead of the world. It was called Simputer, which was launched in 2001. And it had features there which several years later, iPhone and Samsung Galaxy brought up. It was supposed to be a low-cost alternate to PC. It had shared devices that permitted truly simple and natural user interface based on sight, based on touch, based on audio. You can see it's important in the Indian context, not typing, but these other. Then it had, for example, it could do things in 7 different languages, read as well as speak. Prototype was launched in 2001, actually. And I remember Bruce Sterling in New York Times actually wrote about it in 2001. And he said most significant innovation in computer technology of that year was not Apple's gleaming Power G4 or Microsoft Windows XP. It was Simputer, a net-linked, radically simple, portable computer. And amazingly, you actually had a situation where they had these technologies of the highest kind, like accelerometer, which was later on introduced by iPhone, doodle on mail, the ability to write on phone, which was a major feature of Samsung Galaxy. So we were ahead. We had the talent, we had the technology, but we didn't have the trust. And that is why the revolution never took place. Simputer never basically took off. Why? Because in all such cases, if you see the other nations, the government comes in. There are public procurement policies. Government becomes the first buyer. Okay, so for example, if an order for 10,000 computers was placed, for example, it goes into the market, it gets the field reports back, the product is sort of improved, and the marketable product is created, and the business follows. So we miss these bold procurement policies, basically, particularly when it comes to startups. It is almost like asking a 15-year-old Sachin Tendulkar, where is your 10 years experience? When he was scoring his first century before he got into the test. And therefore, we require sort of a completely different thinking as far as encouraging that young talent is concerned. Amitabh Kant has brought up CEO about 17 transformative ideas that can transform India. And I have a chapter in that about the kind of public procurement policy we must have. I do hope that the current government actually implements it. I think what is most important, apart from the government role, is that the missing part is the adventure capital. Because our venture capital tends to be vulture capital. We require a patient capital. Many times, the lead times are so large. I recently wrote an op-ed with regard to this new space opportunity that is coming up, after that fantastic launch of SpaceX and what our startups can actually basically do. And I said, that is the kind of capital that we actually require in order to make a dent here. Now you would say, why are you talking about all this? Because we are supposed to talk about post-COVID, but I am talking about post-COVID. I'll tell you where the challenge is. For example, education to home, we talked about 1.6 billion children. My grandchildren, because I'm doing well enough, my children are doing well enough, my grandchildren are on Zoom. But can the children in villages or in poor shanty towns, in the urban areas, be on Zoom? They can't be. So the Chief Minister, Mr. Uddhav Thackeray, had called a meeting on the other day to starting the school and what do we do? That's a big challenge. And I remember I was talking about what to do with those schools. And then one talked about television, one talked about community radio, somebody talked about telephones to answer the inquiries of the children, etc. But what I am disappointed is that we had technologies by which actually we would have had the connectivity, we would have had the devices. For example, it was not just computer. I remember I had this program on New Millennium Indian Technology Leadership Initiative in year 2000. And it was a very bold program, talent, technology, and trust-based, where the private sector, it is a public-private partnership, a grand challenge is posed, like I posed a challenge. Laptop was $2,000. I said, can you do it in $200? And Vinay Deshpande, of MQR in Bangalore, actually did it, $200. All right? And today, I'm talking about 20 years ago, if there was a public procurement system and the kind of support, that $200 would have been $20 today, maybe $30, maybe $50. It would have been affordable. We had this Akash, $35, basically. All of these would have been available to all the sort of people. We didn't have. Then we said, Baba, that is fine, but what about connectivity? I remember what I did. I was the president of Global Research Alliance. I just stepped down last year. CSR India, CSR Australia, CSR South Africa, Front for Gesellschaft Germany, VTT Finland, DTI Denmark, TNO Netherlands, Better US. Okay, and within that, our purpose was to do global good through global, to global funding, and we had a technology called Yback from Frankfurt, which will give the last mile connectivity. And actually, we had the Global Research Alliance Advisory Board meeting, the annual general meeting, where all the 9 presidents were present. And there's a village near Chakan here, just 40 kilometers from here. The school children there, we got it connected through Yback, and they had a dialogue. They were talking in Marathi, so I translated it in English. But when I tried to take it to the government, somehow or other it did not work, and I will not dive deep into detail. I think the point I'm trying to make is that the post-COVID, basically, because there is a lot of unknown, and we have to look at both physical as well as digital education. There is no question about that. But in terms of digital part of it, those fundamentals that we required, India had it and we missed it, because in that talent, technology, and trust, that trust part was basically missing. So we have to create that. So what have we covered so far? We have covered education. We have covered economy post-COVID. We have covered environment in terms of climate change. We have covered a bit of geopolitics, the way things are going to change. The most important part now is health, actually. Now, when the first case appeared on 30th of June in India, there was a limited diagnostic capability, no point of care diagnosis, no vaccines, no therapeutics. The biology was unknown, and it was one of the most highly infectious virus. I still remember talking to Gagandeep, who became the first fellow of Royal Society, Women Royal Society, by the way, in 360 years. And I was talking to her. She's the one who had developed the rotavirus vaccine. And she said, it is incredible how fast it can actually spread even by a handshake. And this was in February when we gave her the award. And now it is June, and she had proved to be absolutely right. Our figures were just double digit. And today we talk about horrendous figures in Maharashtra, as you know. So we had all that. But I'm very proud to say that the scientific community rose magnificently. I'm very proud of our community. And for example, CSR, everybody has contributed. But my Council of Scientific Industrial Research, for example, they had 5 verticals on which they work. The digital and molecular surveillance, because we have to understand the origin and spread of biology, rapid economic diagnosis, then new drugs, repurposing of drugs, then hospital assistant devices, and the supply chain support systems on all these 5, and the entire CSR just 3 of them. And there have been very notable achievements. I can't go through everything, but just see that. I mean, look at where we were. We had to depend upon China for diagnostic kits. We ordered 1 million. Tests started in states. And then ICMR said, oh my God, they're terrible. Stop it. So not only we stopped them, but also we cancelled 500,000 new order that we were going to place. Why did we have to depend upon China? Could we do it ourselves? And you can see what has happened. Right here in Pune, for example, this startup called MyLab, within 6 weeks, they come out with a diagnostic test. One of our laboratories, Institute of Genomics and Integrative Biology, at least what MyLab did was copying. What they did was something completely original, ahead of the rest of the world. Because I am very fond of saying, let's not just be followers, let's be leader. And they created something that was leading. They used this CRISPR-Cas9 based technology, and they had a technique by which they had the highest specificity that you can actually get to detect COVID, looking at the specific RNA segment. And the cost, not 4,500 rupees, just 500 rupees, based on a very sensitive paper strip. And they will say, oh, come on. As usual, it will remain in labs. No, sorry. Tata Sons came in as a partner from day one. And I'm very happy to say it is getting productionized. The first batch of 10,000, and this breakthrough came just, by the way, a couple of months ago, was produced day before yesterday, another 10,000 yesterday, and we'll have our own. And the most important part of this is that not only it is world class, but it eliminates the necessity for an expensive sort of PCR machine, which is very important. I feel that for India, what is going to be important is what I like to call as affordable excellence. Because as soon as you say affordable, you say it can't be excellent. As soon as you say excellent, it cannot be affordable. I'm sorry. In this particular case, it is affordable excellence. Because what happens is that tomorrow also, when we talk about Make in India, if we start making products which are affordable but low quality, which will suit India, that won't do. We'll have no export markets, for example. All right. So we have to create products which are export worthy. We have created, for example, the CSR, the Institute of Integrative Medicine, and Reliance Life Sciences have come together. And they have created this RT Lamp, for example, and which is amazing. It just takes 99 rupees to do that, and within 30 minutes, you can actually do that, and this has been introduced into the market. The only concern that I have is that this we did only after the challenge came, and I'll come back to that. You will talk about drugs and therapeutics. I'm very happy that CSR and CIPLA have joined together to do clinical trials on favipiravir, and that work is going well. It clears the virus in a shorter time. We have this remdesivir, the RNA chain terminator. Mylan and CIPLA and CSR has come together, and this is now FDA has authorized it for emergency use in COVID-19, by the way. So that work is going on. Then you would say, what about vaccines? Well, I'm very happy to see that close to, can you believe it, 100 plus projects in the world that are going on at the moment on vaccines, and 10 of them are in clinical stage as we speak. And no matter where it is taking place, people are looking at India as a manufacturer. I'm very proud to say, right here we have Serum Institute. Among the children, the vaccines that are given to them after birth, 1 out of 3 children get vaccines from them. So they have turned, like for example, University of Oxford, which is looking at weekend adenovirus based vaccine, they are partnering with them. And WHO has actually asked Serum Institute of India, Zyder Cadila, and Bharat Biotech as 3 companies to produce vaccines that get born sort of anywhere. And there are 2 approaches that are being taken. For example, the old was using a killed virus and using it, but there are new technologies like messenger RNA. And Moderna, for example, my friend Bob Langer from MIT. He won the Queen Elizabeth Prize of Engineering year before last, by the way. I'm very proud. I just tweeted about it because I've been on the sort of jury, and his company, Moderna, has sort of come out with this, and they will be moving on to 30,000 volunteers in July. However, I must have a word of caution because there are a lot of expectations. They will come out in October, they will come out this, etc. I'm sorry. Experts tell me that it will be 12 to 18 months and you can't just sort of shorten it. And I trust that would be sort of the case. In fact, if I look at IT and similarity, if you look at the Y2K opportunity that we had, I think in drugs and pharma and therapeutics and vaccines, India has, in this biological space, the Y2K opportunity. I personally feel for sure. The other point I want to make is that certainly you look at basically the PPEs, okay? And in the PPEs, for example, we used to import something like 70%. The question is, why do we have to do that? And a country which about a couple of months ago had hardly anything, today they are producing, they are becoming the second largest providers of PPEs in the world after China with a $1.5 billion market. And I think that's a sort of a wonderful news. We had some grand challenges, like, for example, Marico Innovation Foundation had 2.5 crore worth prize. I chaired the jury, and we selected PPEs as well as ventilators. And the declaration of the awardees will come next month, next week. But I don't mind telling you that some of the innovations that have been done are absolutely incredible. India believes in doing 10x, kind of 10 times better, but 10 times cheaper. I will use the word 10 here, but approximately that class of things have been actually done. And I think the main point, therefore, that comes up is like this. Why did we have to wait for a crisis for this to happen? I'm reminded, Prabhakar, of a interesting story that my friend Wagul used to sort of mention that he said a friend told him that he was driving and he saw around a river there was a crowd that had gathered, and they were patting a young man on the back for being brave because he had just saved a drowning kid. And when somebody was thanking him, he said, "Don't thank me. Thank the person who pushed me into it. And once you pushed, you sort of did that." So my challenge with what we have done now, basically, is why we didn't do this earlier. And therefore, these proactive ways of doing things are going to be very important. Look at, for example, drugs and pharma. Yes, we are generic producers, okay? But when it comes to active pharmaceutical ingredients, APIs, we depended totally on China. Were we making APIs? We had public sector units. Like, for example, we had IDL and so on and so forth. But as soon as the Chinese flow at low cost started coming, we stopped it. And now suddenly we have woken up after this shock because our drug and pharma industry was worried that what is going to happen because the supply temporarily stopped. So now suddenly there is an API mission. And among India's top, I would say, core competencies, I would say process chemistry and process engineering is one. Don't forget that 70% of agrochemicals that were used in Green Revolution were created by CSR. The generic drug industry came because of CSR. We talk in terms of, the ARVs, antiretrovirals were $10,000 a year, and they were brought to $300 by Cipla. But who did the chemistry? It was Mukund Gurjar from Indian Institute of Chemical Technology. So we have strength, and I think we have to sort of work. The only other point I would like to make is that in this case, we have been reactive. I think we have to be proactive. I'll just give you one example. We are all talking about climate change and therefore electric vehicles. That's fine. Batteries are lithium-ion batteries. And we have cobalt. Cobalt comes from a rogue nation, Congo. China has dominated entire lithium supply. They have acquired mines and the rest of it and so on and so forth. Supposing another situation happens, what happens to mobility? And therefore, there are alternatives on which research is already going on. For example, one of the labs that I'm working with, they are on sodium, by the way, and it's very interesting results. There are alternatives on zinc, magnesium, that is Godrej and others are basically working. They are looking at fuel cells, for example. We have created now fuel cells which have been experimentally tested, validated. There have been 31 US patents on that with such innovation. And there is an enterprise which says we'll produce the, Reliance I'm talking about. They said we will be the largest and the cheapest producer of hydrogen, for example, and then alternative of sort of a fuel cell. So I don't think we should wait for a future shock. And as I said a little earlier, that buy, make to buy better, etc., etc. We have to go with that strategy to take care of the future shocks. The last point, and I will end, and then we can have some discussions. And that has to do with, I have to keep my reputation as Prabhakar said, dangerous optimist. So this dangerous optimist has written this book. It is called Leapfrogging to Pole Vaulting. Leapfrogging to Pole Vaulting. What is the meaning of this book? And this, by the way, last year, I'm very proud to say, in the Tata Lit Festival, it won the Best Business Book of the Year award. And my co-author is Ravi Pandit, by the way, KPIT Technologies CEO. So not bad for a scientist to win a Business Book of the Year award. So the basic idea there, and I like to end with that, is this. Why does the frog leap? Because he is afraid of a predator. And in fear, he jumps to a place of safety and jumps again to a place of safety. The basic issue is that should we be doing that because we are afraid of our competition, or we should pole vault? The size of the pole determines the size of your aspiration. Okay? And you can then actually go have heights which are absolutely incredible. But the book also alerts you that when you are doing the pole vaulting, you are accelerating. You are steady and then you accelerate, and your acceleration allows you to sort of take it. And therefore, if you get any in-between shocks or changes because of policies or government regulations or something else, you have to start basically all over again. And that is where that ecosystem that we talk about becomes very, very important. So I was very happy on the other day, 26th May, our General Bipin Rawat, who is the Chief of Defense Studies, he said while he was beginning, I read Mashelkar's book on leapfrogging to pole vaulting, and that's what we should be basically doing. I think we can do that, but for that, our aspiration has to be high. And that aspiration has to depend, like I said, you cannot have Atmanirbhar unless you have Atmavishwas, the self-confidence. And that Atmavishwas has to be backed up by both policies. And then not just policies, because India is famous for ideas, but for determined action. And if that is the case, then we can really pole vault to a great new future, COVID or no COVID. I know COVID is going to be with us, there is no doubt about that, but we will find a way. The past will tell us as to how we can move in these situations and conquer the great heights. My friend Alan Finkel, who is the chief scientist of Australia, on the other day said, I would like to correct you with not dangerous optimism, but achievable optimism. So he has moderated me. So I like to end with this moderated version that has been given to by my friend Alan Finkel of achievable optimism. And once again, I'm very, very grateful to you for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much, Dr. Mashelkar. I saw a couple of hands go up during the discussion. One was from Mr. Tulsi Tiwari. Before that, is Madhav Mohan here?
Yes, very much.
Madhav?
Yes, I'm here very much.
Yeah, can you please come in? I would request you to come in. Madhav is one of the most creative minds that I have met, and I would like him to come in with by leading the discussion, and then we will have a couple of questions. Madhav?
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Raja. It's a great honor for me to be here, particularly to listen to one of India's greatest scientists. And to me, Dr. Mashelkar is not just one of India's greatest scientists, but also a true Indian hero. So it's a great privilege and an honor to participate in this. I was listening to all these wonderful, dangerously optimistic, achievably optimistic ideas, and I'm completely enthralled with your 3D and 3T. Just thought I'll throw in a couple of observations and comments, and perhaps it can be opened up. So when you talked about digitization, decentralization, and decarbonization, one central principle emerges out of this 3D principle, namely the erosion of central power.
Yep.
And that is a matter of great insecurity and threat to leadership, especially government.
Perfect.
But also underlying that is this whole concept of economies of scale, which has been the Mool mantra of economics for the last 150 years. Namely, you have to scale up in order to reap economies of scale, bring in productivity gains, and thereby reduce cost of production. But with decentralization, digitization, especially digitization, is the concept of economies of scale obsolete? Is the era of mega factories, for example, obsolete? I somehow tend to think so, with things like 3D printing, distributed networks. In fact, Tulsi Tawari is here. We were talking the other day of a decentralized network of sensor-based, AI-linked network, dal mills and rice mills in villages.
Mm-hmm.
So is the concept of economies of scale obsolete? Perhaps, I don't know. Perhaps. And the other thing is, of course, you talked about the 3T model, which is talent, technology, and trust. And talent, technology, and is understandable. When it comes to trust, I think it's a whole leadership deficit that India has so sadly been faced with over the last 700 or 800 years. Even though in the last 6 years, perhaps there's been tremendous improvement, there's still a leadership deficit. And all the Indian innovation comes to naught because of that leadership deficit. So I was just wondering, if between the idea and reality and government, there is a whole lag. There's a whole lag. So all the wonderful innovations, and in fact, you alluded to that in your brilliant talk. All these things we know, we are capable of doing. But the minute government gets into it, it's the kiss of death. And is that a reason why we are where we are today? No, India has traditionally been the hub of all kinds of wealth, spiritual, temporal, and material. That's why the world wanted to come here and colonize us. But coming to the present scenario, there's one area of hope for us we perhaps should leverage. The world is running on semiconductors. In fact, there is a company called TSMC in Taiwan. Taiwan semiconductor company, which hogs almost 55% of the market share for semiconductors.
Yeah.
But guess what? The design of semiconductors is all Indian. All Indian engineers sitting in Bangalore for many of these large design companies have actually created the designs for all these semiconductors, which have then been etched and manufactured using lithography, etc., by TSMC and other companies. So we are right up there in the value chain. But sadly, it's that leadership deficit that holds us back. So this is my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Brilliant. May I respond to this? I think it's wonderful. These are very insightful comments. Let me take up the first comment that you had. That we require, you can't hold power at the center, but you have to empower it's very interesting, by the way. We had this Prime Minister's National Innovation Council in Dr. Manmohan Singh's time. And Sam Pitoda used to be the chairman. I was a member. And, all of us have regrouped together. And every Thursday we meet in the evening. And one of the themes that we're doing, Myra and all others, etc., is precisely what you said, as a matter of fact. Decentralized power. And if you remember, in fact, it was in Rajiv Gandhi's time that Panchayat Raj, with this particular idea, empowering at that level in village was actually created. But it didn't happen because people want to hold the power. Even in the current pandemic, for example, before the power went to states, it took so long. And then from states to district and district to then Panchayat, because action is actually right there. So I totally agree with that. The other thing is that mega factory of the future, there is going to be a huge change, by the way, in everything that we do. For example, gig workers. With the kind of digital technology that we have, for example, if you are in, let's say, big data analytics, why the hell should you have a specific firm deal? You have experts spread all over and you sort of connect them, as long as you know the purpose and they get properly sort of connected, it can happen. So the nature of all that is going to be hugely disrupted. I have no doubt about that sort of at all. The third is about the trust. And when I say trust, it comes in many different ways. I'll tell you, once Bill Gates had come to India, and I was invited for a dinner come discussion with him. We had Nandan Nilekani and Anand Mahindra and so on. And he said he was invited to Harvard University and to give the at the convocation, the address, and there he declared himself in his speech as the most successful dropout of from Harvard, and then he narrated an incident where hardware was being manufactured in Albuquerque. And he said if they want hardware, they will have they will need software. So he said, I phoned them up. And he was some 19-year-old kid, maybe 18, 19. And he said, I will offer you. And he told us, half thought that they will keep the phone down. They did not. They said, come after a month, we are not ready. And he said, thank God they said, come after a month, because I did not have the software that I was offering them. That is trust. That is safety. We miss that. So I'm isolated examples of that happening. For example, I'm chairman of this National Innovation Foundation, and we spread innovation all across. And there is a young boy, Harshvardhan Zhala, who has created drones which can actually spot landmines and diffuse them. Can you just believe? He has got US patent, and he created a startup of his own. He's aged 14 years. But his parents basically were poor, and they borrowed 4-5 lakhs so that he can be given the prototype. And then the Gujarat government came out with this thing, and now Indian Army is in touch with him. So we have talent of that kind. But as I said, there are islands of excellence, they are exceptions rather than the rule. So how do we build that entire ecosystem is the challenge. The last point about trust, I like to tell you. My specific example, because many of these things we have to do in India, by the way, despite, not because of. And that is how, as you know, the CSR transformation in 11 years is considered as the top 10 achievements of Indian science and technology in Jan Narlikar's book. And World Bank has taken it as a model, etc. That transformation was possible because we did a lot of things where the government did not matter or they didn't come in. I'll just tell you, when I said adventure capital, how we created adventure capital. For example, in year 2000, there is a very interesting story. I was the DG, Sinha was the finance minister, and he said, he told me, the budget was on 20th February. He phoned me up on 18th February and he said, Mashelkar, I want you to do something by which the scientific will get extraordinarily excited. So I said, sir, how much time do I have? He said, 30 minutes. Normally in Delhi, you have 30 minutes to do it. So I remember I said, New Millennium Indian Technology Leadership Initiative. Leadership was the key word. Because we have been great followers, not leaders. But leadership means risk, because you are doing something that nobody has done. So I said, government should take the risk. Fair partnership. We give the private sector loan at 0% interest to be returned only. But they will work on a grand challenge that the nation has. And he loved it, actually. Yashwant Sinha loved it. I got a call from his office asking me to write 5 lines which he can read in the parliament. Now, here is the trust. Only finance minister and I talked to each other. The minister of technology did not know anything. Planning commission, which was supposed to write the check, did not know anything. And that Nimitli program became one of the most successful public-private sort of partnership program. But here I have an example to give you, that trust part of it, which is missing today. I can't do that today, by the way. Bioinformatics was a big word at 2000. But accelerator, the software was $500,000. How can my biotech companies, small biotech companies afford? So I went to senior vice president of TCS, Vidyasagar, and said, I'm a 10x guy, 10 times cheaper. You have to do it. And he was also crazy like me. He said he will do it. But they did not have domain knowledge in year 2000. I lined up 19 laboratories, like Center for Cellular Molecular Biology, functional genomics, structural genomics, and all that. They came together. We put in $5 million, and within 18 months, there was BioSuite that was launched in San Francisco in the bio meeting. Now, the important part of such a program, that is what I meant, adventure capital, government giving money to the private sector. Interesting because that, when Vidyasagar went to his board, they said, why are you robbing poor CSR? We'll give you. He said, no, I'm getting access to 19 laboratories. When I went to my board, they said, you are giving money to rich Tatas. I said, no, I'm seducing them to get into bioinformatics. Today I can do that. They will suddenly say, oh, you gave money to TCS, because then later on you are Tata scholar, you are on the board of Tata, you chair this, that, and the other, etc. So, trust-based systems at all levels. And today, I'll tell you, in India, the major problem is not budget deficit, it is trust deficit. Between society and industry and government, society and government, and the rest of it. We will have to basically come out to it. So whatever India is doing, by the way, is despite everything, not because of. Thank you.
We may have time for just one, possibly 2 questions. There's one from Tulsi Tabari, which is very much related to what we've been talking about, decentralization and empowerment and knowledge. Tulsi, would you like to come in? And very briefly.
Thank you, Professor Raja. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, very well.
Yeah. Professor Mashelkar, of course, it's a great privilege listening to you. There are so many points where one can go on having discussions and advice from you and wisdom from you. But I want to refer to 2 points only right now. One is regarding the very major point that you mentioned. I hope it becomes a part of curriculum really, is that how your mother self-confidence percolated in you. Because I have had the same kind of mother. so I can connect with that. And I think that is the most important parameter in a child's life. Now I come to the point regarding the economy and the decentralized economy by mentioning that you have really reassured many of us who are working in that direction that yes, there is someone up there in science fraternity who is also thinking exactly in the same line. Now, my question actually to you is in the context, and I'll not elaborate on that. I know everyone will understand my terminologies that with rampant intellectual corruption at all levels in our country and mediocre celebrities becoming decision makers, how do you empower the real, genuine knowledge creators and knowledge entrepreneurs in this country? So, could you come up with a strategy, or could you suggest a strategy, or could we make a mechanism of intellectually integrity people like you down to young creators so they can reach out to each other? You know, there is a mechanism which is missing, and can we create something like that? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your comments about my mother. You know, by the way, it's very interesting. When I talk to young children, like I did yesterday, you know, my first line is always, aspirations are your possibilities, keep them high. And my mother gave it to me, by the way, and that is how this dangerous sort of optimism. I don't mind sharing something with you while we are on line. You know, as you know, I was born in a very poor family, and my mother brought me to Mumbai. 2 meals a day was a challenge. I walked barefoot until I was 12. I studied under street lights, you know, getting 21 rupees for moving from 7th standard to 8th standard secondary school. She took 21 days to basically get it. It was a very, very tough life indeed. And every day she had to do something so that she will earn a bread for us. There are days where we were hungry also. So one thing I want to especially mention to you, she had gone in search of a job. And this was Patana Samaj, Congress House, stood in the queue. And they asked her, when her turn came, they said minimum qualification is 3rd standard pass. And she was not. And she said, I'm not. She could have lied, you know, but she had never lied. So she didn't get the job. And she was returning empty-handed. And then she thought, why am I insulted? Because I don't have education. So I'm going to make sure that my son get the highest level of education. Then I became, because I did everything on scholarship, by the way, Tata scholarship of 60 rupees was because of which I actually studied. And then I became BKMensch. Then I was going to leave because she and I, you know, she was struggling. She said no. She had found out there is a PhD. So I did PhD. Then she found out there was a postdoctoral research program. She said, you must. And then I did that. And she kept on pushing me, by the way. And, you know, by God's grace, your blessings, I've got 42 honorary doctorates so far. And I remember when I got the 25th, I told her I got my 25th. And then after 3 months, she passed away. She said, now I'm satisfied. So what she has done is to give me a lesson that the ladder of excellence is limitless. The only limit you can put is up here, as a matter of fact. And that's the message I keep on giving. And that's why yesterday I gave the same message to young children, young leaders. And I said, every day in the morning when you get up, it doesn't matter whether now you are in 20s, but 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Every day in the morning you have to say to yourself, my best is yet to come, and maybe it will be sort of basically today. He gave me that. So thank you very much for sort of mentioning that. And yes, you whatever ills of the society that you talk about are right. But despite that, we do things. I have done things basically despite that. So there are a lot of bright spots. And as a matter of fact, in India, you know, the leadership we always talk about as a big, bright this thing, I don't think that is the model, actually. Light can be created by a number of sources, and they could be fireflies, large number of fireflies who create sort of that light. And I'm seeing that in the young. One of the reasons I'm dangerously optimistic is about that youth, the kind of aspiration that they have. I like to end, by the way, by telling you the story what makes me optimistic. For example, I was just talking to these young, among the intellect, I think we are talking about the young. So I was talking about the power of higher education of India and the quality. And I said, look at Microsoft. Satya Nadella is the CEO. Then I said, look at Google, Sundar Pichai, Indian. So you must aim at that. One young fellow got up, by the way, and you'll be very happy to know. Actually, and these are bold guys. Huh? He says, sir, all due respect to your age and experience and everything, I can tell you, you don't understand what is going on in our minds. I said, why? I thought I said something nice, become Satya Nadella or Sundar Pichai. He said, no. Your generation was the one which somehow or the other wanted to go to US. Next generation came, not only you go to US, but we want a job in Microsoft or Google. The next generation came, who wants to be not just go to US and join Microsoft, but become Satya Nadella. So not my generation, our generation. We want to create our own Microsoft, our own Google here. That gives me the optimism, basically. So despite all the issues that we talk about, I think this power that we have today is going to carry India forward. That's my hope.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. A wonderful note to close the discussion on. We would have been very much tempted to carry on, but time does not permit us to take on some of the questions that I have received. May I?
Yes.
Bharat?
May I say something? Yeah. My email ID is a very simple one, ram@mashelkar.com.
Yes.
Ram, very easy to remember, ram@mashelkar.com. So I'd like to connect with you, answer any questions or seek any advice that you can give me. I'll be very happy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. Thank you, Vibna. And I'll send this message to all the others also in our community. Now, may I request Bharat to propose a formal vote of thanks?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Raja. Professor Mashelkar, thank you very much. That was a very enlightening speech. Of course, both you have spent some time talking about the technical aspects of your work and what we need to do as a society to move forward. And questions have also come on that. But rather than highlight that, what I would like to do, sir, is highlight something a little bit more personal. You're obviously an extremely well-renowned man. I had not seen you or known exactly what you look like. And I want to share, if you don't mind, sir, my being a little personal again, the first thing that I saw when you came onto my Zoom screen was, the first thing I saw was a very, very kind face, an unassuming face, a sensitive face. Rather than talking about the 3Ds and the 3Ts, I would like to highlight that, sir. That's what struck me most, that this is an extremely personable, sincere gentleman with a lot of humility. And that initial impression that I formed stayed through and in fact became stronger as I kept listening to your talk, especially, for example, when you talked about the plight of the migrants and you could not sleep at night. And I felt good that somebody who has spent long years of his career in positions of leadership across whole societies is fundamentally at heart an unassuming, sincere, simple sounding person. I felt very good. That, sir, is what struck me most, is your humanity that came out and was further emphasized when you talked about the debt you paid to your mother. I could almost sense the tears in your voice, as well as the pride when you spoke about her. So thank you so much for being such an inspiration, and thank you for taking the time to come and address us here at Athashri Bangalore. But we have also used your celebrity as an excuse, if you have noticed, to expand our coverage from Athashri Bangalore to Athashri Pune, Rotarians Bombay, and so on and so forth. It was also our first attempt to broaden our base, and I think it's thanks in no small part to your contribution has come out very well. Finally, again, on a purely personal note, I'm a professor of mathematics, and I want to thank you, sir, for being such a strong advocate for science. I believe, as you do, and I'm sure many do, that science is our only way forward. Unfortunately, even among the elite in societies across the world, that faith in science that has kept the world going for the last 500 years is being chipped away for various reasons. I won't get into them. So we need people of your status to bat for it. I do in my classroom, but I almost don't need it. But for you speaking to the public and highlighting science, I thank you. So thank you, sir. And I'm sure you will receive a lot of emails on, once again, that's ram@mashelkar.com. Thank you.
I have it with me. Yeah.
Thank you
very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Mr. Raja, I think I will end the meeting now.
That's right.
We can continue there. Thank you, everybody, all participants. Thank you so much for your time.
See you again in similar programs.
Yeah. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.